Warning: this video contains spoilers for The Killer and other David Fincher movies, so beware. Alright, let's get into it. The Killer, in short, is not what you expect of a typical David Fincher film. When you think of David Fincher, you think Fight Club, Seven, Gone Girl, Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, or even Mindhunter. You know, a slow unraveling of a thriller. But The Killer ain't that. It takes a shot at subtle comedy. You know, a David Fincher classic. The thing he's known for. If you haven't picked up on it by now, I'm being sarcastic. I went into this movie without watching any of the promotional material, including the trailer. All I knew was that it was a David Fincher film and that I had to watch it. I expected a David Fincher film. The Mindhunter-esque intro and the Gone Girl-styled opening monologue satisfied my Fincher craving and amped up my expectation of a certain type of film. A really good, slow, unraveling thriller. What David Fincher is known for. But that is not what I got. Instead, I got this.
Simple. Fuck, it would last 6-7 minutes. Shit.
And it's not just me. They baited people with Fincher's previous catalogue. I may not have watched the trailer, but I had friends who did. And because they used his previous catalogue of Seven, Fight Club and Gone Girl in the trailer, they had the same expectation of the film that I had. Netflix wanted people to at least associate those movies to The Killer. Before I proceed, if you're still watching and don't hate me by this point, please subscribe for engagement.
Do it! Just do it!
Let's move on to my unsolicited thoughts on this movie's plot. The Killer is about an assassin who is played by the amazing Michael Fassbender.
Perfection.
Hired to take someone out. We're not told who he is or why there's a hit on him. Ooh.
Nice.
A mystery is being set. Surely Fincher will unravel this eventually. Surely. The assassin is portrayed as the best at his job. Mostly through his own internal ramblings.
I find music a useful distraction. Not exceptional. Keeps the inner voice from wandering. What I am. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.
And it might have been enjoyable if he didn't sound like an autistic robot. But then he goes ahead and fucks up the job.
Fuck.
Now I'm intrigued. Why did our perfect assassin miss his shot? How is this going to affect him? Ooh, some more setup that's going to have some Fincher payoff. Right? Right? So he visibly freaks out and runs off to his house in the Dominican Republic, where as he approaches the house, he realizes something's off, and John Wicks himself into finding his female friend all bloodied up. Seeing her in that tattered condition, it gets his blood boiling. Who is she? Why is she so important to him? What led our almost perfect assassin to bond with her? What exactly is she to him? Ooh, Fincher is setting some character relations that will be unveiled by the end of the film. Can't wait for that. At this point, I think to myself, it's been more than 30 minutes of questions, and that's fine. Fincher films do not necessarily make sense right at the start. You are posed with a lot of questions that eventually get addressed, and so I place my trust in David Fincher. Spoiler alert, they don't. None of these questions remotely even come close to being addressed. I honestly thought that at least some of these would be explained as the film progressed, like a classic David Fincher thriller, but it doesn't. And this is where the movie shifts tone. It turns into a revenge film, where he sets his sights on the assassins that came for him, but got to his lady friend instead. Kinda like an alternate John Wick, but not as fun. He easily tracks the green taxi. Lucky for him, it happens to be one of the only 2 green taxis in the area around his house. How lucky. Despite being a perfectionist, he fucks up again.
7 minutes. Shit.
He kills his professor/lawyer before he could extort any information out of him. But he gets it through the professor/lawyer's assistant, whose neck he empathetically snaps off. Again, he messes up, but he gets the information though. Lucky boy. He brutally kills the brute, though I did get nervous about the dog for a sec there. But it's fine, it didn't die, it's just homeless now. Then we get to the coolest scene in the entire film with Tilda Swinton.
You're here because you couldn't help yourself.
Which is mostly carried by Swinton's performance.
That's all I have to say about that.
Then, he doesn't kill the client who hired the assassins to kill him. He just walks away with a warning. It's sad the cab driver never got the same offer, eventually going back to his house in the Dominican Republic to relax by the seashore with his lady friend. All in all, the remaining 1.5 hours of the film feels like Fincher trying to affirm the 19-minute monologue by showing us how the killer can kill, in different ways. Okay, cool.
Cool.
But I've already seen this done well.
How good's your laundry? No one's that good.
In John Wick 1, 2, 3 and 4. Honestly speaking, if it's just a revenge film, I think Fincher could have done much better. Gone Girl is basically a revenge thriller. You also have that amazing revenge subplot in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So we know he can do revenge, but this wasn't it. At least I personally did not find it engaging. What was the purpose of the 19-minute monologue? It has no bearing on the rest of the movie. Was Fincher trying to establish him as a complex killer? Because he really isn't. All I got was that he was a perfectionist who has a mantra that he needs to stick to but doesn't stick to it sometimes.
Forbid empathy. Empathy is weakness. Trust no one. Stick to your plan.
And eventually just says, fuck it. I don't know what was the point of that. Maybe I'm not smart enough to figure out the complexity of this character, but sometimes you don't need a character to be this complex to be compelling. He's made movies about complex characters that are easy to understand, like John Doe from Seven, Tyler Durden from Fight Club, Amy from Gone Girl, Holden from Mindhunter. He even made Jesse Eisenberg's Mark Zuckerberg interesting.
You have part of my attention. You have the minimum amount.
Yeah, let that sink in. The guy knows how to make characters compelling. But again, this wasn't it. By the end of the film, we know nothing about the killer. Nothing. Who was the killer? Why is he an assassin if he suffers from empathy? Is he a sociopath with a bloodlust? If so, why does he have empathy issues? Why is he an autistic robot? Why does he have his mantra? What previous mission or job led him to have his set of rules? Does he have a history of messing up? If so, why would they hire him for this high-paying mission? Either the guy is bad at his job and nobody should trust his expertise and the target wasn't that high profile, or the killer was really good and messed up just this once, and that knocks his confidence, which leads him to mess up going forward throughout the film. This may or may not make sense, but
Do you know what I mean though? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
there are so many questions that are unanswered, and this is just about the main character. And you might wonder, why does it matter? Why do we need answers to these questions? We don't need to get to know him on a first name basis. And we don't. But you see, David Fincher doesn't just throw things at the wall and hopes it sticks. With him, everything is meticulously calculated. David Fincher, as I've known him throughout his filmography, has a very specific type of style. You're posed with questions right at the start of the film, and as the movie progresses, the answers are revealed slowly but surely. His impressive catalogue primarily constitutes a genre of slow, unraveling mystery thrillers. Every scene and every character is in service of unfolding the mystery and the plot of the film. Every dialogue has a purpose and a place. Nothing is uttered for the sake of it. It's right down to the tone and the color of the film. I am not saying the movie is not well shot, directed or cut. It's pleasing to the eye, but I don't watch David Fincher films purely for the aesthetics. See, David Fincher is free to do whatever he creatively wants. I'm not knocking him for that. It's just that when we hear a certain director's name, we have certain expectations of them. Say if someone mentions that Quentin Tarantino has a new movie, without having any context, you have some sort of clue what kind of movie it will be. The same with Martin Scorsese, Christopher Nolan, Wes Anderson and so on. Despite the story or genre, there is a signature that a director has on his films. It's the same reason why Baby Driver didn't resonate with me, because it was not a typical Edgar Wright film, but that's for another video. To bring this to a close, this was a very lackluster film. Knowing the expectations I had for it, considering it was from a director I held in such high regards, who makes amazing films. Again, he's free to make any sort of films he wants, but if he makes another film like this, I'd rather skip it. I'd rather have him take that money and put it in season 3 of Mindhunter. If you like my thoughts on the film, please physically share it with someone who would appreciate it, and definitely share it with someone who would disagree with it. We gotta ruin the day just like the killer ruined mine. Additionally, I would love to know your thoughts on the film down in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. For the lack of coherent and interesting plot and the underwhelming lead, this movie has no business being almost 2 hours long.